They survived days without food, a failing engine, and a storm that nearly tore the ship apart. But what made them turn pale was still out there, floating, motionless, unidentified. When pulled it aboard, even the most seasoned sailor froze. What they discovered wasn't in any manual, and it wasn't part of the plan. So what did they find? Let's dive in. But to understand how it all began, we need to go back, before the mystery, before the rescue, to when it was just a boat, a captain, and an ocean. The Vastness and the Setup. Far out in the Pacific Ocean, where sky and sea blur together, a lone fishing boat battled the waves. It had been 14 days since the Sea Hope last touched land. Salt coated its hull, and the engines groaned with every swell. At the helm stood Captain Mark Jensen, a man shaped by the sea. His silver hair whipped in the wind, and his stormy blue eyes scanned the horizon. Quiet and steady, he commanded respect without a word. His scarred hands, hardened by years at sea, now gripped the wheel with more than skill. They held the weight of a choice. 2 weeks earlier, he had steered the Sea Hope into uncharted waters, far beyond familiar grounds. The radios were silent, the maps blank, and each mile forward meant fewer paths home. The crew followed, not out of duty, but trust. Jensen had never failed them. But this journey felt different. The sea was too calm. The sky is too still. And deep in the captain's gut, a quiet warning stirred. Something was waiting out there. They just didn't know what. What's more powerful in moments of uncertainty? Experience, intuition, or courage? Which one would you rely on? Comment and chat with me. Yet, even the bravest hearts can be tested when the sea decides to withhold its bounty. And for the Sea Hope, the test had only just begun. Struggles and stakes. The first week was incredibly tough. So tough that even the seasoned sailors began to doubt whether the venture would pay off. The nets they cast repeatedly into the dark waters came back almost empty, as if the ocean was testing their patience and endurance. Young Han Chow, the mechanic with golden hands and a dreamy look, spent long hours in the engine room every evening, trying to squeeze out the best performance from the old engines. His calculations for fuel consumption were becoming more and more frustrating, and the furrow between his brows deepened. First Officer Miguel Ramirez, the guy who knows the sea like the back of his hand, spent hours on deck watching the horizon. He occasionally took out his worn-out pipe, a family heirloom passed down through generations, holding it more for comfort than for use. Every empty net hurts his heart. His family is waiting for him back home, and his youngest daughter, Maria, dreams of medical training. How can he go back to them empty-handed? Meanwhile, the ship's cook, Amir al-Said, who has spent more years at sea than some of the crew have been alive, is meticulously counting the food supplies. His wrinkled face, battered by the winds from the seven seas, grew more anxious each day. He had been gathering supplies in scattered amounts, trying to stock up, but deep down he knew time was running out. The young sailor, Andras Kovacs, a Hungarian whose ancestors had never laid eyes on the ocean, felt an inexplicable pull toward the water. In his spare moments he scribbled down his thoughts in a tattered diary. With his slender fingers roughened by the ship's ropes, he carefully penned lines about each day of the grueling journey. But when patience runs out and hope begins to fade, only one thing remains: choice. And the choice Captain Jensen made next would change everything. The risky decision. On the 7th day of the trip, Captain Jensen gathered the crew in the cramped dining hall. The sailors' faces were serious. It was clear to everyone that a crucial decision was about to be made. The maps spread out on the table showed a perilous route to far-off parts of the ocean that fishing boats rarely ventured to. The risks were significant. Even a small mishap far from the shipping lanes could become a major problem, but there just wasn't any other option. Another officer set strong cups of coffee in front of the crew and shook his head. "This is risky, Captain. The ocean doesn't offer second chances easily." But even in his voice there was a sense of understanding. There was no other way. The fuel tanks were half empty and the food supplies were running low. Coming back with an empty hold didn't just mean financial trouble. It also meant losing their fishing license. The navigator, Erik Svensson, a quiet Norwegian with a red beard, charted a new course. His fingers moved confidently across the map, marking out dangerous spots and potential safe havens in case a storm hit. From his experience, it was the perfect time of year for their risky adventure. The hurricane season hadn't kicked in yet, and the currents were expected to help conserve their fuel. They gambled everything on a path rarely taken. But what happens when risk meets reward? Before exploring, I have a special 10-second request for all of you listening. If you can help me in any way, just hit the notification bell and hit that subscribe button. It helps this channel so much. And if you do that, I will do everything I can to make this show even better for you. Deal? The turning point. Tuna catch. Day 9 started like usual, with a gray dawn and a light, salty drizzle on the deck of the ship. Nobody could have imagined that this would be a turning point in their fate. Around noon, the lookout, Jamal Hassan, known for his hawk-like eyes among the fishermen, spotted something unusual on the surface of the water. Within minutes, it became clear to everyone on board that they were facing a massive school of tuna. The first casting of the frame was nearly a disaster. The rigging groaned and creaked under the weight of the mold, threatening to give way. Han Shao, who had gone down to the engine room, personally monitored the operation of all the machinery. His hands moved swiftly over the controls to adjust the oil flow and cooling, while the crew above struggled with an unprecedented catch. The deck quickly turned into a sea of silver as the struggling fish piled up everywhere. Ramirez was leading the loading operation, his booming voice cutting through the noise of the waves and the cries of seagulls that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Every crew member gave their all, knowing that chances like this only come around once in a lifetime. The 2 days blended in an endless cycle of casting nets and hauling them back in. Muscles burned from exhaustion, and hands were rough, even raw beneath their gloves, but no one thought about taking a break. Emir barely managed to prepare meals for the sailors on board without interrupting their rhythm. The spicy seafood pilaf, usually a crew favorite, was now eaten mechanically, just enough to keep them going. Majestic whales swam close to the ship, like ancient guardians of the ocean, silently blessing the fishermen's efforts. Just when the sea seemed to bless their efforts, it reminded them that nothing out here is ever truly safe. And that reminder came loud, fast, and violent. Storm strikes. Their powerful engines roared to life in the sky, creating rainbows in the midday sun. Despite feeling exhausted, Andrus never forgot to jot down notes about these encounters, knowing they'd turn into cherished memories someday. When the last booking was filled, Captain Jensen finally gave the long-awaited order to head back. The weary crew cheered. They were finally on their way home for a hot shower and warm hugs from their loved ones. But the ocean had one last lesson in humility. Their route was blocked by a sudden, intense storm that even the most experienced meteorologists didn't see coming. The sky darkened with massive clouds that looked like sea monsters from an old tale. Towering waves rocked the ship, testing its strength with every surge. The wind roared across the deck, trying to tear away anything not tightly secured. Jensen, who had been at the helm for 18 hours straight, made the only call that made sense: steer north to avoid the storm's core. Sure, it meant an extra day of travel, but pushing through could have led to disaster. Erik Svensson, pale but composed, adjusted their heading and calculated the ship's drift against the fierce winds. Their fresh water supply was running low, but nature lent a hand. As rain poured down, they collected several barrels of fresh water. The crew rationed every drop and kept their minds on home. In rare moments of calm, the sailors gathered to play cards or dice, trying to lift their spirits. but their hearts were focused on making it back. When the storm finally passed, the Sea Hope pressed forward with quiet determination. Every mile felt hard-won, fatigue set in, fuel was low, and the engines strained under pressure. Han Chao practically lived in the engine room, personally watching over every detail. At last, a thin line of land broke the horizon. Just as the tired crew began dreaming of homecomings, Andros, who was keeping watch, spotted something strange in the water. They had made it through, or so they thought. But as the shoreline came into view, the ocean had one final secret to share, hidden beneath the waves and crying out for help. The Discovery. A thin gray line had appeared on the horizon land. After weeks at sea, it looked like salvation. The crew of the Sea Hope was sunburned, salt-stung, and running on sheer will. Thoughts had turned to hot meals, clean sheets, and the warmth of familiar arms. But the sea wasn't finished with them yet. Andros Kovac was on watch, his tired eyes scanning the water out of habit more than hope. The sun glared off the waves, and the breeze had finally calmed. Then something shifted, a flicker near a jagged rock. Not a wave, not foam. He grabbed the binoculars and focused in. A dolphin. But something was off. It wasn't gliding or leaping like dolphins do. It was moving erratically, clearly in distress. A thick knot of discarded fishing net had wrapped around its tail, limiting its movement. Each attempt to break free only seemed to make things worse. Abandoned or lost fishing gear like this is known as ghost gear, and according to the World Wildlife Fund, it's one of the major threats to marine life, affecting thousands of whales, dolphins, seals, and turtles each year. And this dolphin was at risk of becoming another casualty. Andros didn't hesitate. He shouted down to the bridge. Within seconds, Captain Jansen was at his side. No one asked if they had the fuel. No one questioned the delay. No one said they were too tired. They were sailors, and sailors have a code. No one gets left behind, even if that someone has fins. Jensen gave the order. The Sea Hope adjusted course, now heading directly toward the struggling dolphin. Below the deck, Han Chao was already checking the winches. On deck, the crew prepped a sling and net, the same tools they'd used to haul in Tuna, now repurposed to save a single life. They didn't know if they'd make it in time, but they knew they had to try. If you were part of the Sea Hope's crew, would you have turned the ship around to save the dolphin, or kept sailing for home? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious how you'd handle that moment. What followed was not just an act of courage, but of compassion. And for sailors used to catching life, this time they fought to save it. The rescue. The Sea Hope circled carefully, waves pushing her starboard, then port, as the tangled dolphin drifted dangerously close to a jagged rock shelf. Captain Jensen stood firm at the helm, calling out small adjustments, steering with the precision of a man who knew that one wrong move could put them all at risk. On deck, the crew worked in silence, focused, tense. They dropped the net again, missed, and again. On the fourth try, the sling caught. Slowly, steadily, they pulled the dolphin aboard. Han Chao and Ramirez, the strongest hands on the boat, gently held the dolphin steady. Its skin was smooth but cold, its energy fading. Every breath was shallow and slow, its chest barely rising. Amir, the cook, knelt beside it, not with his usual tools from the galley, but with a pair of rigging shears. His fingers, broad and worn from decades of work, moved carefully through the tangled net. Bit by bit, he cut the net away, taking care to avoid the shallow abrasions hidden beneath the knots. Ghost gear like this is often made from nylon or polyethylene and can linger in the ocean for hundreds of years, tightening with movement and posing serious risks to wildlife. Meanwhile, Andros stayed at the dolphin's side, dipping a small bucket into seawater and gently pouring it over the animal's skin every few seconds, again and again. The dolphin needed to stay wet to survive. Its eyes followed Amir's every motion, not with panic, but with calm awareness. Then, from its blowhole, came a soft, rhythmic series of clicks. Jamal crouched nearby with a small medical kit and listened closely. Eric Svensson, who had once studied marine biology before becoming a navigator, nodded. The final strand of the net slipped free. The dolphin was scratched, but not seriously hurt. No major bleeding, no broken bones. Eric gave a quiet thumbs up. The crew opened the side hatch and guided the dolphin carefully across the wet deck. One last splash of water, a brief moment of stillness, and then, with a strong kick of its tail, the dolphin slid back into the sea and disappeared beneath the wave. What happened next, none of them would forget. The water calmed. Then, without warning, the dolphin breached. It leaped through the air, twisting mid-leap, casting a rainbow arc of seawater that shimmered in the sun. We dive deep into real ocean mysteries, survival tales, and unexpected moments at sea. If that's your kind of story, hit subscribe and come aboard. But the sea wasn't done with its surprises. What happened next wasn't just unexpected. It was something none of them would ever forget. A magical moment. The dolphin didn't vanish into the deep. It stayed. At first, just a few meters off the bow, it turned and twisted in the water, leaping high, landing in splashes that rippled across the surface like joy made visible. Then again, and again, each leap was effortless, joyful, as if the sea itself had joined in the moment. The crew stood frozen, still dripping from the rescue effort, their clothes soaked and their bodies sore, but every face carried something different now. Not just relief, but quiet awe. For nearly an hour, the dolphin swam alongside the Sea Hope, riding her wake, dancing through the spray. And then, from the distance, more shadows appeared. 1, then 2, then 5. A pod. The freed dolphin wasn't just recovering, it was reconnecting. According to marine biologists at the Dolphin Research Center in Florida, dolphins can recognize the unique whistles of family members even after decades apart. Their social bonds run deep, and their memories are remarkably long. What the crew of the Sea Hope witnessed wasn't just instinct, it was something emotional. A return. Andras, notebook in hand, could hardly write fast enough. His pencil moved furiously across the damp pages, trying to capture the moment before it disappeared. Every jump, every tail slap, every golden shimmer of the fading sun. The ocean, too, seemed to hold its breath. The sun dipped low, painting the water in molten gold. Waves shimmered softly, like liquid silk, rolling gently under the hull. The Sea Hope had never felt so still. Then, from the shadows of the bridge, Eric Svensson spoke, just a whisper. No one replied. They didn't need to. Each sailor on that ship had poured themselves into the journey. Time, effort, skill, and heart. And in return, they received more than a successful mission. They were given a moment. A reminder of what still matters out there. Integrity, empathy, and connection, even when no one's watching. As the Sea Hope turned once more toward land, the sky turned soft and purple. The last rays of the sun clung to the water like a farewell, a quiet nod from the sea. And just like that, their journey came full circle. But what they brought home wasn't just a catch. It was a story of connection carved deep into their memories, and the sea. If you found today's video interesting, don't hesitate to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Your support is very important to us. Be sure to check out the next video appearing on your screen. You're sure to love the content we bring. Please leave a comment about which country you'd like us to explore next. Thank you for watching and see you in the latest video. Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.